I'd just like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Abington School Committee here on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019 at the Abington Middle High School Library at 7 p.m. First order of business, I'd like to have everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just got it right there. Thank you. Before we get started, in the usual thing, there's a couple things I want to mention. One, Lisa Augusta could not make it tonight due to a family obligation. And second, for those of you that do not know, tonight is Jeanette Larry's last school committee meeting. Since 2011, do I have that right? First elected 2011. I have some, yeah, first elect 2011, what I have anyway, 2 years as chair, 2 years as vice chair, current vice chair, 2 years as secretary, school council liaison to all the schools in the district, member of numerous subcommittees, including the Abington School Building Committee. 2 sons, both graduated. One graduated while you were here, and one about to graduate in a month and a half. Yes. All right. Correct. So as part of that, Jeanette, we have a proclamation that I'm going to read. Whereas Jeanette Cummings Larry is duly honored as a school committee member for the town of Abington, and whereas Jeanette has served the Abington Public Schools from 2011 to 2019, the Abington School Committee takes the following action. Resolved that the Abington School Committee acknowledges with gratitude the faithful services rendered by Jeanette Larry, that this action is being taken in recognition of her dedication to and her work on behalf of the administration, faculty, staff, and children of the town of Abington, that this action shall become a permanent part of the minutes and records of the Abington Public Schools, and that a copy of this resolution here be presented to Jeanette Cummings Larry as public manifestation for the enduring goodwill of the Abington School Committee and the town of Abington. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm not going to say it's been fun, but I think we made a lot of great strides over the years, the almost decade that I've been privileged to work with Felicia and Peter and Dipna and Teresa and many other of the building principals. Both of our children had a great education in Abington, and I'm proud of what we've done. I think we still have some things to improve on. Mm-hmm. So I challenge the committee members that are still here to, I guess, challenge and push and fight for the things for all children in the district, and look beyond your kitchen table and do what's best for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you again. Did you want to add anything?
So if I could just thank Jeanette for the support that she's given over the years, because in all of those different roles, we've been down so many roads and so many challenges. As a school district, she's been there and supported the schools along the way with her thoughtful input and her insights, and she's been a good, I believe, representative of the constituency groups out there in terms of their needs and what they want and need in their schools. And I just think of some of the challenges that we faced over the years, and I just appreciate that you've been there through those. And for all of that, Jeanette earned $0, and so she's, she served out of a passion for this work. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette.
You're welcome.
And now we will move on. So, hearing of visitors. Would anybody like to speak and address the committee on anything on tonight's agenda? Okay. Moving right along, we're reading and approval of records. We have minutes from March and February's meeting. First, we're going to do March, and when anybody's ready, we can take a motion to approve them.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain.
Abstain, yep. And moving on to February's meeting, seeing. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, up next, principal report. First order is I'd like to welcome Mr. Christopher Basta as the new Beaverbrook Elementary School principal. He's here to say a few words tonight. Mr. Basta, if you want to come up and say a few words.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here tonight, and I'm so excited to join the Abington team that I've been working here for the last couple of days for free. I would like to echo what your outgoing member shared, that from what I've learned in my short time for the last month or so, working with the professionals that you have in your public schools, you have made great strides, and I'm looking forward to becoming an integral part of the community and helping to move forward for all students. I especially like that part about what you said. So thank you so much. I consider it an honor and a privilege to be here.
Great. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
So Chris survived a rigorous selection process. We asked everybody in his background about everything there is about him. I think we even interviewed your kindergarten teacher.
I think so.
They said really nice things about you. And we're excited to have Chris as a part of this team. I've updated the committee on all the people that took part in that selection process and appropriately thanked them. And Chris is right. He's been here. He's trying to close out responsibly his work in Connecticut, and he's been driving all the way up here. It's about a 3-hour drive. And so for the last 2 days, he worked basically. We paid him a salad tonight for all the work that he did. Appreciate that because he already wants to be a part of the work here. So out of respect for your long drive, I think you're getting up this morning pretty early so you can get back to Connecticut.
Yeah.
I know Chris would answer any questions you have, but after that I'm going to suggest you mosey because you've working 2 jobs right now.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Anybody have anything?
No, just excited to have you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome. Looking forward to working with you.
Up next, Dr. Sullivan, Abington High School.
Right, first thing on the agenda for you tonight is to ask Mr. Schaefer to present the Certificate of Academic Excellence to Allison McLeod, who's here with her parents this evening. Allison is the #1 senior student in the class of 2019. She's the National Honor Society president. She's the senior class treasurer. She's the school newspaper editor-in-chief. She's a National Merit Scholarship semifinalist, Dartmouth Alumni Club Book Award, the Word Right Challenge highest national honors, academic excellence in English, in music, high honors every single year, an AP Scholar with honor. I couldn't possibly run down the entire list for Allison, but with a 4.0, Allison serves as our #1 student in the senior class.
I know. Just like, take a couple of them. I know. One more. There we go. I do.
Thank you.
Allison, can we just ask where you're continuing your studies next year?
So I'll be attending Dartmouth College this fall.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Congratulations and best of luck.
What are you going to take there?
So I'll be studying computer science.
Also, I'm going to present the school improvement plan.
Yep.
tonight.
Yep.
So I passed out earlier a new page 8. Made a mistake and gave you last year's page 8.
Okay.
I'd like to first thank the school council, Susan Crowley, who's our co-chair, Carol Velasco, teacher, Susan Buckley, parent, Kate Casey, teacher, Terry Donovan, parent, and Goya, parent, Fraser Toomey and Colby Persikas, who are student representatives, Ms. Leary, who's been the school committee rep from school council, and assistant principal Luco. Typically, the school improvement plan just lists sort of those sort of things that we think you should know about and should be written down on an annual sort of basis, but a lot of them you'll see we do every year, and this annually we try to just tell you how many did this and how many we did. I think the achievements sort of speak for themselves, and there are pages of achievements there. I think for the purposes of tonight, You want to look at the goals and tell me what you think of the goals moving forward. The page 8 here is something we added a couple of years ago to our improvement plans, which is sort of picking a couple of summary items on each of those goals that we might want to highlight. I think for the obviously for the student acquisition and performance, we want to talk about obviously the Blue Ribbon Award and implementing a one-to-one laptop program. In terms of analyzing student performance data, looking at program policy and staffing. We had already talked about some of these things, but creating the Hoogaduk, what we had looked at was obviously social emotional issues, and that's what drove us to do something different. We also recommended additional staff for English, special education, and emotional health. I put emotional health because I know it might be adjustment counselor or school psych or guidance counselor or somewhere there. The third goal, support programs and policies to maintain a safe environment. We have added the e-cigarette vape detectors to the student restrooms. I'm not sure how much more safe that's making it, but we're working to work out some of those kinks in the technology. And we've trained all the students in the ALICE safety protocols, and we'll continue to drill those as well. And the last goal is a continuation of the NEASC accreditation process. It's a 10-year process. We don't put it in for 10 years, but last year we had a collaborative conference, and then in September 2020 we'll have the decennial visit. So this year is a big year for us to prepare for the decennial visit. So we did do the successful collaborative conference last year, and now you'll see that that's also part of the goal for next year as well. Okay. Any questions on the 18-19 accomplishments? Page 9, a list of the goals. 10 breaks down the first goal in the professional development activities that we would hope that we would be able to accomplish in the next year, hopefully by June. That should say 2020, shouldn't it? It should all say June 2020.
Okay.
So I'll change that as well. But certainly work to support our technology program, the one-to-one initiative that is continuing. We're going to look for more Canvas training in our student management system so that students and teachers are more interactive together with that. It's probably the biggest piece here for us. It's not a one-year thing. I think you can initially bring it in, but it's going to take us time. The analyzing the student performance data, the second goal, we have to, based on our NEASC report, we have to develop a vision of the graduate and to develop our core values. This is different language than the previous 10 years ago report. It was a different sort of, we had mission and expectations. Now they've changed that. We're sending people to PD. Actually, I think 3 or 4 people going to Burlington to the NEASC conference coming up in May to help us develop a vision of the graduate. We sent out surveys for that, so that will help us develop that vision. I think the rest is what we usually typically do. Third goal, working with what are we doing for our social emotional wellness of our students, keeping our environment safe, looking to add the additional counseling staff, and how we're going to make that work. I know we're hopeful that we might be able to share a new position, grades 5 through 12, that will support the needs of the students. And still working on one of the focuses on the NEASC collaborative conference was about the cleanliness and the upkeep and maintenance of the building. It's so big and it has so much technology centered around how to do that now. That was one of the goals that they put in as well for us to. So we'll have to answer to them in 2020 how we're doing there as well. And then 4 is specific to NEASC. That's going to take a chunk of our professional development time. Questions?
I have a question, Terry.
Yep.
On back to goal 1, the expected completion date for that's June 2020.
They should all be June 2020.
June 2020.
Yes.
So, in regards to Canvas, so it's new and it's new now. It's not a year process. Realistically, since we, haven't come to real full implementation of our old system, do we feel that June 2020 is a realistic for that to be?
No, I don't think it'll be completed. I think we thought of more like a 5-year plan. I think we're hoping to have teachers in maybe the next year be able to develop modules. So at this point, we ask teachers to use a calendar feature, to use a homework feature, so that kids can see what's posted. And then at the next phase, we're going to ask teachers to be able to implement a module. So start from one unit, or one chapter, or one subject from beginning to end, whether it's a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's obviously art would be different, and certain subjects don't use Canvas the way other subjects do. But I think at least getting our curriculum aligned, we might be able to do. I mean, in terms of, I'm hoping we could just add a box on our template that how are we using Canvas in this particular subject, in this unit, in this, I think we could do that. Maybe not in every single subject area.
Will we continue to use, and I don't know, maybe if this is a question for both of you, while teachers and staff are getting up to speed on how Canvas works and how they implement it, will we still be using parent portal? Like, how are we going to be communicating academic grades to parents during this time?
Yeah, we're still using Aspen X2 and the portal. That, I think that's been a debate we've talked about, is when can X2, I think it's X2 is catching up to Canvas, or Canvas catching up to X2. We definitely would like that to integrate. Because we're keeping grades, for example, on campus for students, but parent access, would be through X2, and so is mine. So I'm not seeing Canvas either. So we talked about that as an administrative team. Ideally, those two would integrate.
So one of the difficulties, and Rich Bykowski, he'll be here at one of our subsequent meetings, he can explain this. The two systems, the software engineers are creating a way for them to link to each other, and it's Aspen that's supposed to be creating language to integrate into Canvas. And so every couple of weeks, every month, I ask Rich, what's the update? And every month he says, I've communicated with Aspen X2. They tell me that their engineers are working on it. That won't solve all of our problems with the regular and updated and posting of grades, but that will solve a lot of problems because it'll be more seamless.
You feel it will help? You don't feel it will hinder?
It'll help.
Having two
the teachers, well, right now we have two,
Right.
because the grades, the Canvas system.
You have to put them in one and not the other.
Right.
They can't go in the other.
Right, and when they can communicate to each other and those grades transfer over easily, it's less work. So you're not posting your grades onto the portal. You're using the Canvas for that function when they can talk to each other, and you're done.
And the expectation will become a stronger, it is expected for the grades to be put, so that they will be able to be seen?
That's always been what we've been working for, yeah. For teachers to regularly update that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So they'll do it in Canvas, and then it will.
And we have had progress on that. That's not to say that it's happening.
But I think,
all the
for
time.
example, like progress reports and report cards, we're still using X2,
Yep.
to do that.
Yeah.
And ideally,
You
it
wouldn't
would
need them.
integrate, or you
Correct.
wouldn't need one of them.
Yeah, because you could,
Right.
as a parent, I could look on at any time and see where my student is.
Right.
And you wouldn't have to be
But-
sending it in the mail and one at home with
Right,
them.
right, but you should be able to do that through the Canvas piece, because that would be even more specific about, and this homework is missing, and this, right.
And the only other option we have is to, and I don't only have to say this out loud because we make people bananas, is to abandon X2. I mean, we finally got our operating systems and all of our data and our management, and everybody's comfortable with that operating system. And if you've got a system that, I mean, there are so many different pieces of data that go into this software program, and we're talking about X2, to switch out of that rather than wait for them to create that connection would be.
I'm not even sure Canvas has the same capabilities for student information management.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it from my students, from his side, and but I don't see the flip side of, on the other, like the back side of how it's structured. But yeah, I think if we shut parents off altogether, and students use it. I mean, my kid's all the time looking on the phone. He's like, oh, I have this, I have this, I have this. So I do think to at least not try to get them to talk. And so that's up to you guys. Keep bringing it up when I'm talking.
Okay, I'm gonna take a note.
It's frustrating that they don't communicate with each other yet, but
Well, they're two different systems.
switching
so.
out of X2 would be, people would run out of their houses with their hair on
Yeah,
fire. It
you
would be
can't.
crazy.
Okay. Thank you.
The only other question I had, in goal 4 for the rubrics that are mentioned, develop a school-wide plan for the use of common assessments rubrics. Are the rubrics that are attached here?
Those are the rubrics that we have currently, but they're not going to fly with the new NEAS process.
That was my question, are these rubrics new, or were they the ones that you already have
Those
been
are the
using?
10-year-old
Okay.
rubrics right,
Do
that
you-
went along with our, what was the mission and school-wide academic expectations. Now with the new model, I'm pretty sure we'll have to develop some school-wide way to assess our students meeting what we say we'd like them to be when they graduate.
Do you have any insight on how the new rubrics will look compared to these? Just any highlights on like a major difference or anything that you want to share yet?
I don't, except I think less is more.
Yeah.
I do think that NEASC has been a more friendly around what their expectations are. I think that particularly in Massachusetts, because Massachusetts has already done a lot around accountability, and so a lot of people have complained that why are we paying this money to go on to accreditation process when we're pretty well accountable through Massachusetts Department of Education. So they've been a lot more friendly in terms of allowing us to develop, I think. And so I do see, from what I see, I think we'll have a lot more opportunity to be more independent the way we do it.
Thank you.
Terry, I had something, I don't even know if it's not necessarily part of this, but it was more a question and something that came up towards the end of last year. It has to do with the rotating schedules at the high school. I just didn't know if you could maybe give a little bit of an update. If it's not a good time, it's not a good time. But any kind of update on where it may stand, the research into it?
Sure. We've put together committees. We've sent people out on school visits. We've been to Pembroke, Falmouth, and Situate, and we've come up with a couple of different scenarios, maybe 3 or 4, narrowed it down to 2, presented it to the faculty. Was supposed to bring it to school council last week. I didn't have a quorum. I had to reschedule that. I was hoping to bring that here tonight with part of the student handbook.
Okay.
We've met with union president and vice president, I know Steve's here, working out the kinks around what we have on the table at the moment is what's called a flex schedule, where one period actually rotates through the schedule and you drop one.
Okay.
We still are going to struggle with shared rooms. So we share a band room and a chorus room with shared staff, for example, our ELL staff, so it's not that simple to just drop and rotate when everybody else isn't either.
No, I understand, yeah.
So it's been complex. I think we've maybe come up with a happy medium. The problem there also becomes when you start dropping a period out of a 7-period day, it drops somebody's prep. So now we're talking about contractual concerns. How do we provide preparation time in an equitable manner? And, so that you want to make this be successful, and I've got to say that, I mean, in all my interactions with staff, with union as well, it's been, how can we make it work? Not you can't, how can we make it work?
Okay, great.
So we're still working on how
Okay.
can we make it work, and be fair,
Okay.
truly.
Thank you.
Sure. That's all I have for improvement plan.
Does anybody else have anything? Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Thanks.
Up next, report of the subcommittees. Business and Finance Subcommittee, Lisa and I will take it. The update I have is that, you guys have it here, so last month when we presented the budget, we were at an increase of 3.59%. We've lowered that number down to 3.5%. Essentially, there is one more known retirement, so the retirement bucket reduced by another 20 grand or so. I think I can kind of say that as of right now, this 3.5% is kind of a consensus budget with the town. We'll wait until our next meeting to vote a final number to go into town meeting with, but that's kind of the update as far as where we stand right now. I don't know if anybody had any questions on it.
The positions, you going to talk about the positions in the packet, or do you want me to
Go ahead,
touch base on them? Sure.
yeah.
So the positions, as we've discussed previously, are also in your packet. The only piece that's not here that's still out there is the possibility of, from that other sheet, of a fraction of a music person. which is dependent on how these schedules come together for next year. For a small investment of dollars, it would potentially provide a great benefit to the music department, because one of the things that they're thinking about doing is restructuring with the tutors, and so we would take that money that the tutors were getting, and that would partially fund some of this fraction, then fund some additional dollars to provide that fraction, and the twofer would be the benefit to the elementary schedules and the benefit to the music department. And so for that investment, that might be worth reaching for later, depending on how things shake out. So because that's not here, in full disclosure, I just want to mention that, so nobody's surprised later if I come back and talk about it.
Next up, social and emotional learning subcommittee. Jack, Anna, take it.
Sure, yeah.
Thanks.
So our subcommittee, Lisa and I and James and Peter have met. Currently, we're kind of looking at the survey data the survey that went out to the community, and just sort of processing what's the best way to share that out and think about it. We need to continue to review current practices around what we're already doing for social emotional work in the district, and then think about future professional development. Something that I just want to mention that I think, and please jump in, Peter and James, but I feel like we've had maybe 3 meetings, and a common theme that keeps happening and is being talked about at our meeting, which is I think an important one for the community at large to kind of hear about, is that we continue to have these deep conversations about our students as people. Just being really considerate about the fact that they have thoughts, feelings, worries, stressors, opinions of their own, and then not necessarily always having the autonomy or power to themselves, being the student role. So we're doing a lot of thinking around making sure that as a district we build this school community that's really vigilant and mindful of how our big and small decisions impact the little and big people that we're responsible for. And I know that myself personally at the table advocates just for checking ourselves against this standard of like, how would this make me feel as an adult? And I think that we're all in agreement that the work that we're doing across the entire district, we keep asking ourselves, how do these decisions, how would this feel as an adult to have all of your assignments due on one day, or just conversations like that. So please jump in, but I think we're doing a lot of important good work around how to be really respectful and thoughtful about our students as people, and I think that's a big shift, not just for Abington, it's a shift that in education as a whole we're trying to do. Thinking a lot about where do our students graduate and where do they go, and they sometimes go into corporations or companies that have cultures very much based on the idea that people work in different ways and that people have different needs, and maybe not everybody's in a cubicle. So we talk a lot about where are we sending off our students in the future, and what do those cultures and communities look like, and how do we take what we know about the world and sort of think about what we're doing here in our district. So it's big work. We are only at the very, very beginning.
Well, thank you.
Can I ask James to do some
please jump in,
update on some of the things?
Yeah, I also mentioned that I would just share out with the group some of the professional development that we've done kind of over the course of the year that really hits on social emotional themes, just so the community can kind of understand the work that's been underway. First, before I do, and kind of as a jumping off point, I just want to take the opportunity to advertise that the CPAC has kindly arranged for Sarah Ward, who is an expert on executive functioning, to come to Abington on this upcoming Monday, May 6th, from 7 to 9 p.m. to give a presentation on executive functioning in the main auditorium. For those who don't know, executive functioning refers to kind of a cluster of skills related to self-management, essentially being your own executive assistant. So that means things like organizing your time, prioritizing tasks, managing your materials, and task completion. So those are all things that we kind of take for granted as adults, but for those of us who work with adolescent age students, we're constantly perplexed by why they just can't do these things that seem so basic to us. So Sarah Ward is really is an expert at making at coming up with strategies to use at home in order to support students getting kind of their act together, so to speak, so that they can meet all their academic responsibilities. And the reason why first I just wanted to pitch that, because I think everyone should, if time is available, make it out to that, because Sarah is just such a great speaker. But also I think the approach that we're taking by making these presentations available to the community is sort of consistent with sort of a district-wide approach to imparting knowledge to the community, as well as our staff members, in saying that we want to share knowledge with the greater community so that the community can partner with us to get the best results for students. And that involves parents, like making presentations like Sarah Ward available and Jessica Manahan at the start of the year. But also in terms of social emotional learning, what we're typically, when it comes to mental health, social development, socialization, just the emotional experience of students, that's reserved in the realm of specialists. We expect our guidance counselors to be experts on that, and our school psychologists and school adjustment counselors. But really what we need to do is make it so that all members of the community have a deep fund of knowledge on mental health, social emotional learning, emotional management. And so toward that end, throughout this year, we've arranged 4 major professional development events where we've had members of staff attend. And so typically what we do is we'd have our school psychs attend, so that they'd sharpen their sword, so to speak, in terms of emotional management. But this year we've had a lot of members of our general ed staff attend, so that while they're teaching their core academic subjects, they're also prepared to deal with the emotional life of their students. So some of the events that we've kind of sponsored this year is we've had a large number of our teaching staff attend the social thinking curriculum in the fall, which was presented by Michelle Garcia Winter. And what that is it's a way of teaching. So it's a way of conveying information about social rules in ways that elementary age kids could understand. So we had a large contingent of our Beaverbrook staff attend that PD. In the early winter, we had Denny Howley come and work with our preschool and Beaverbrook staff on trauma-informed classrooms. And so what this is when mental health goes wrong. Of course, our mental health staff members are aware of these challenges, but many of our general ed teachers are not. So we wanted to make sure that they had exposure to this information so that they'd be better equipped to deal with students who are struggling significantly with anxiety, depression, and anger. We also sent our kindergarten, our entire kindergarten staff to a collaborative problem-solving training in the winter. And what collaborative problem solving is a way of helping students through emotional crises in a way that involves partnership. Typically, the way we would deal with students who are having sort of behavior problems is that we would create behavior charts, and we would use discipline. But collaborative problem solving is a way of working, is a conversational approach that involves working with students to get them through tough moments in time. So we sent all our kindergarten staff to that. And also, very recently, we had Jerry Goldberg work with all of our middle school staff on social emotional learning strategies. So this is things that they can do in their classrooms to just sort of create psychological safety and make kids feel respected and encouraged, and create a sense of community in their classrooms. So to kind of put it in a sentence, by sponsoring these events throughout the year, what we're really trying to do is make knowledge of mental health and emotional management available to all members of staff, not just our interventionist staff. Because if we feel like we can do that, because if we do that, we're likely to impact more students. And because not all students are comfortable going to meet with their guidance counselor or school psychologist, but they may be comfortable with one of their teachers. So we want those teachers to really have knowledge of emotional management and mental health.
Thank you, James. Jack, did you have any more to add? Or?
No.
Thank you very much. Report of the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, Dr. Fedorowicz.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
How are you?
Hi.
I'm going to be going over the Teaching and Learning Strategic Action Plan that you should have in your packet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and provide an update on this. It is in alignment with the goals and initiatives that you've heard previously district goals, and I want to read, I'm not going to read the whole packet, I'm just going to go through the highlights, because there are some items in there that are ongoing, and then there are some things that we've updated and changed. Please feel free to stop me with any questions at any point. Otherwise, I'll just continue on. So, in looking at the Teaching and Learning Strategic Action Plan, the first, if we look at the strategic goal, is to improve student performance through curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And the first objective is to provide rigorous and relevant curriculum and instruction in an optimal learning environment. So on the first page, the first row there, we didn't have any changes. That is continuously ongoing and maintaining alignment with the frameworks. Second line, no changes in maintaining optimal class sizes. For the third row, we changed in the first column there, continue to incorporate the Mass Technology Literacy Standards, and that was before just incorporate. And under indicators, we've included integrate technology standards vertically. And under status, we removed technology skill courses and staff contingent upon school budget because we have, we replaced that with digital literacy and computer science courses at the elementary and middle school levels, which we now have. And in the next bulleted item, continue technology literacy standards alignment through interdisciplinary integration in individual courses. Any questions on the first page? Second page. We added to the 21st century skills in the left-hand column the 4 C's that are associated with it: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, just to make sure that they're defined and they're out there. Under indicators, we wanted to better define the indicators, make them more pointed. So before, we had the practices and instruction and assessment there that we crossed out and replaced it with more specific items such as increased student engagement through increased student-centered pedagogical practices, visible project-based learning in classrooms to engage students, approaches to play and learning in pre-K, workshop model strategies in kindergarten through grade 5, and increased use of interactive technology in the classrooms. Under status, we feel that this is continuous for the embedded 21st century skills, and we added that this is visible through instructional rounds and coaching models. In the next row, no changes to the action step, but we did add Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment and Director of Student Services. And as you heard James previously, there's a lot of work going on together with combining our special education teachers and our gen ed teachers, just so that we are able to reach all students. And that's something that we've been talking about since the beginning of the year, is working together with that. No changes under indicators, but under status, we added created social emotional learning mission statement and committee. And we also added continued additional supports through social work interns, mental health counselors, and social emotional programming and spaces.
Sure, I don't have so much a question. I think it's more of a statement for those that may not know it, anybody listening. I know we just went over, we have our own social emotional learning subcommittee, but the staff as well has created a sort of social emotional learning committee as well, and kind of working together, right? So
Right.
I just don't know how many people know that, so I just more wanted to make it known.
Right, right. Yes, it's going on within the district as well. Thank you. Any questions on that page?
I have some questions on that page. So as you're going through this, I'm thinking about how meaty this document is, and it's sort of hard to listen at home, and even sitting here with those that have this in front of them. So we're looking at some action steps for for teaching and learning, which after safety, physically and emotionally safety, how safe are our students? This is the business of what we do. This is the most, so there's a lot that I could talk about, but I'll just pick a few things that I have questions about. Under the action step of identifying and embedding practices in instruction and assessment that support students for critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity. You've added that one of the ways you're going to do this is through the instructional rounds and coaching models. So how is that feedback shared more broadly with staff? The feedback, so an instructional round is like medical rounds where the team of doctors go around and sort of check in and learn from each other's patient, which will then help them to learn how to treat their patients better in the future. So that model's been applied to education, that we can go in and look at the ways that other people are teaching and use that to help better our own practice. So, and I'm more curious because we do this in the district where I work as well. And I'm wondering, in order for us to be sure that this action step occurs, we can say that we're going to make it visible through instructional rounds, but not everyone in our district is able to be part of the walk, the round. So what is the district's plan on getting the feedback that you gather on your rounds visits out to the broader staff?
So one of the things that's I'm gonna
Absolutely,
jump in if that's okay. One of the things in particular to the instructional rounds is that those have to be non-evaluative. So providing that feedback to staff directly as a part of those walks is something that we shouldn't do, we can't do, because it's non-evaluative of the individual. However, there is a whole evaluation process that communicates that through the teacher evaluation plan. So there is specific feedback that's given to teachers based on those done in the evaluation model, observations that are done by principals.
Yeah, I'm not thinking so much about the feedback of what you saw for an individual teacher, because I realize they're non-evaluative, but usually you have a focus on the rounds. You're not going in. Yep. So, is your focus linked to this action step that you're saying when we're going in, we're looking to see what practices exist, or maybe it's more about how often. In our district, it's how often are we seeing students think critically? How often are we seeing evidence of students collaborating during a lesson? And so that's eyes off of the individual leading the room. It's more about collecting broad level data on what's happening in our classrooms.
Understood. And so to address that, what we're doing is we're focusing on indicator 2, which focuses around engagement in classrooms. And so there'll be a focus. And one of the things was suggested at our last administrative team. So we've been doing that already, focusing on engagement this year. We're going to continue that next year so we can focus and dial in on specific elements of student engagement. What we're going to add to it for next year is prior to each administrative team meeting, which is monthly, the principals will meet in one building. There'll be a walk through that building with all of the administration, with all the administrators, because the way we did it this year is people would sign up and they would attend 2 or 3 a year, and then we would process it afterwards in that group. And now what we're going to do is all be in one building, and then the start of the administrative team meeting that month, we'll be processing it together as a group of administrators in terms of what we saw in that building in those classrooms.
And then does any of that work that's done at the administrative level get shared out to the general teaching, the teachers that are then really charged with the work of trying to identify and embed practices in instruction and assessment that, they're the ones that are driving whether or not this actionable step occurs. So whatever feedback that's gathered from administrators who are visiting is we need some type of means, I guess.
I get some serendipitous that you asked that question, because at that same administrative team meeting we talked about how then a principal could go back, and we'd have to be careful how we do this, how we provide this feedback to the staff at a faculty meeting and talk about, as a building, what was seen on those walkthroughs, but we wouldn't want to individualize it anyway, because that could be evaluative in nature.
And one of the ways, just a suggestion, is if the educators are involved in what they want to be for us to look for the rounds, people who are doing the rounds. Ideally, we would want teachers to be part of the walk. If they can't be for coverage reasons, we want them part of the process of what is it that as a collective group we want to get better at, or we want to know if the work we've put in is shown. Like, are our students actually doing what we think we're setting out to do? And so sometimes when they're adding their opinion, I don't know if that's part of it now. Like, I don't know how your process works, but I guess I think there is a disconnect if we can't connect the teaching staff to the work that we're doing in the instructional round process. Because when we go back, again, for accountability to this action step of how do we embed practices in instruction assessment, it seems unfair because it's the teachers that are going to be doing this work.
So we've had in the past other rounds that are teacher rounds, where they can see other best practices in their buildings. That has not been, each building has taken on that as a building, and they've done it different ways in different buildings. We have not done that as structured a way as a district as what I just described to you. You will see, as you walk through this building, there'll be a couple, and in addition to that, you'll see every once in a while, you'll go by a room in this building or other buildings where there's a sign on the door that says, "Come observe me." And then it asks for feedback in specific areas. And those are teachers that have identified, please come look for this in my room. So not every teacher has those signs. I couldn't tell you how many do. That's sporadic because we want to encourage more of that. That's just another piece of one of the things that's going on.
Yeah. And I only bring it up because I just think we have to be careful as we create these cumbersome documents that, like, teachers are listed under the people responsible under this action step. And now we've added new bold language that we're going to make this visible through instructional rounds and coaching models. So I think, maybe just this is maybe a bigger conversation for another time, but just thinking about as we add things as part of our status, that we're really clear on how all those pieces fit together. Hope that makes sense.
It does. And these are aligned with the goals that the committee gave me. So these don't take us off in a different direction. These are parallel and aligned as a district. And you're right, these are meaty. And how do you demonstrate each one of these things and have accountability for them? Because we could spend one night on any one of these things.
I know, and I'm thinking about this from me who understands a lot of this language in here related, to the field. I know it's easy to throw in words, but then there's a lot. So if we're really coming back to the actionable part of this, I think that we need to just be really careful that how do we make sure that as we add language, that each of those pieces, like in itself, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity that's a lot. Is there one in particular that we want to really hone in on to see if we can get better at first? Are students able to critically think, or are we going to work on collaboration, or are we working on everything all at the same time? And I don't know, this is the work of the district, but it's just I think it would be unfair of you to put the time and energy into this document and for us as a committee not to dissect it a little bit to make sure that it's a living document that actually is impacting the work that we do in the ways that I know you want it to. Yeah. So sorry, I do have one other quick question on this page. I'll promise this one's quick. For the workshop model strategies in K-5, could you mention maybe, or I'd love a copy even after, of some common strategies that you're expecting to see K-5? Because I've sat here in the past months, and we've talked a lot about vertical alignment between buildings. We've talked about wanting to build consistency for students who are reading at Beaver Brook and then move to Woodsdale and then move to middle school. So do you have any specific strategies that are listed here that you're hoping to see K-5?
Yeah, and some of it's evolving. Some of the buildings are a little bit further ahead than the others. But for example, one of the big pushes this year was the independent reading stamina, which has really improved. We're looking to build more of the libraries out, and we have gotten some more books in. So we're working on that. We also have, to help with the alignment, the K-5 is going to be visiting another district, and it's actually going to be over the course of 2 days so that we can get grade levels, or as many teachers as we can, to go by grade level, to actually go see each grade level and come back and debrief about some of the strategies that we see there.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I'm not trying to be nitpicky or a pain. I just think when we're really clear at the top, like if we can answer with clarity what the strategies are that we expect to see K-5, it makes the transition down to the classroom levels easier, that everybody's working under a common understanding and definition of what a kindergartner would see and then what a fourth grader might see that is common in terms of workshop model strategy. So I just wanted to mention that.
I have a question, Sherry.
Yep.
Under the, on the same page, the same goal, and under the indicators of accomplishment, when we talk about approaches to play and learning in pre-K, I mean that, what does that mean to you? Because I have to say that it tells me nothing. I have to be honest.
It's actually some of the new standards that are coming out from the state, which is APL. It is very closely aligned with the social emotional piece of it, but it's been very specific to early education.
And so we're training our teachers on that now?
Yes.
Pre-K?
Starting with pre-K, and we have also had some professional development with K join grade pre-K for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Sherry.
Any other questions on this page? On the next page, the Director of Student Services was added to this, again, for that, the ability to work together and look at specialized services and programming so that we have that hopefully seamless, we're working toward that seamless transition and helping all students. On the next page, our second strategic objective. So our goal is the same, and our objective is analyze students' performance data from a variety of sources to make informed decisions. In our first row, looking at support data teams, we've added Director of Student Services, and we are going to be adding review data for instructional supports and progress monitoring. Again, next row, identify areas of need for curricular and instructional decisions based on achievement data. Again, James and I will be working together. That's why we brought James in, as well as administrators, coordinators, and teachers. And then down at the bottom, since we've already implemented the next gen MCAS, I just added the word annual into there because it's going to be continuous going forward. Any questions on this page?
I have a question. Let's see. I'm going down to developing and implementing common formative and summative assessments as one of the action steps. And I think I brought this up before. So our assessments are the tasks that we give students. And then based on how the students do, that data is the outcome that we look at to see if our teaching is sticking or what parts. So it's sort of this cycle, right, that we look at the outcomes that students produce, and then and that's what the new bolded piece that you added, review this data, review these outcomes for instructional supports and progress monitoring. So when we talk about common assessments, like K-5, we have a Wonders program, we have Envisions, they come with assessments. So I'm still looking for clarity on when it says develop and implement these assessments. Are they new assessments or are they the assessments that come with the programs? I'm just talking K-5. We have two big purchase programs. ELA has Wonders, Math has Envisions, right? So are we going to be, when you talk about common formative assessments, K-5, are they the existing assessments that come with these programs?
Some, yes, but we're also looking to expand, to have more vertical alignment, to have more of a diagnostic test. For example, looking at something for reading levels to see how the kids are reading, or with the math, an additional diagnostic that would be a vertical assessment for kids so that we can look at grouping the kids for more differentiated instruction.
Okay, I just want to say two things about that because from the social emotional lens. One is, again, if we go back to that question of like, how does this feel to me? I guess I want to caution us to think about adding additional assessments onto students' plates in the ages of K-5 if we're going to be giving the existing assessments that come with the programs we purchase. I can understand like a reading level, but I think we can very easily justify why we want to give students more assessments. Sometimes we give more because we have more data, we have more outcomes, and with those outcomes, we can do more, we can come up with more of a better instructional plan. And I just, nothing to be solved today, but I'm just, as we think about sort of the social emotional piece, I want us to think carefully about what we add in K-5 beyond the assessments that students already have to take. Not even including MCAS, just daily unit, weekly unit assessments. And then the one other piece to that is just before we add anything additional, or while we add additional pieces, I think it's important that teachers have time to actually dissect the existing assessment. So sometimes we give an assessment without really knowing or having had the time to look through all the pieces of the assessment, and then we have this outcome, like we have this score, or this group of scores on how our students did. And if we base our instructional plans on only those outcomes, only the numbers, without going back to the assessment itself, sometimes we realize that there's certain questions on the assessments that were just worded wrong or the confusing to students, and it's not that the students as a whole are underperforming. So I just think, I know because I live it, and I'm just advocating on behalf of a couple people here. I'm advocating mostly on behalf of students. Let's just be really careful about what we add, that we know purposefully what we're adding and why we're adding it, and why we need it in addition to what we already have. And then also, before we add more assessments for the people who have to pass them out and administer them and correct them, have they had time to really understand the existing assessments that we already use and have well enough that that we can justify adding more? And I just, it's something I feel strongly about, because I know that cycle, and it's so easy to just throw another assessment in and then get some more outcomes, get some more data, get some more numbers, and then let's go change some instruction. And I just want to remind us that at the center of that cycle are the student bodies that are completing the assessments. So that's my soapbox, but I think it's important as we, this is a big page again with like a lot of items, so I want to make sure we're being thoughtful, that's all.
With respect for that, assessment time is loss of learning time, because you don't learn while you're taking a test.
Right. And there's no perfect program and no perfect assessment. If there was, we would just put laptops in front of everybody and say, here you go. So I think that we really, the power in the assessment is the teacher having time with colleagues to say, like, how did your students do? And we all gave the same assessment, and like, these are our outcomes, but how did they do, and why did they do it, and what did you do differently, or what did I, those are where the power and the change comes in. So I just want to that's just a sticking point for me, is adding additional assessments without fully utilizing and understanding our existing assessments. And that's really, I promise that's it for me on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? And then I think it's the last page. The last page, same goal, and the objective is commit time and resources for meaningful collaboration and high-quality professional development. So this basically has remained the same. The only thing we are pulling out is Alice, although we are continuing to do Alice, and we still have the drills, and that's something that's ongoing. We didn't feel it was a curriculum performance item, so it just didn't belong in this particular section. That was the only reason. And that's it. Any questions? Any questions?
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Report of the Director of Student Services, Mr. Robbins.
Yeah, so I just have a really quick item. A ninth grade family has submitted a request for homeschooling education. I vetted the request for compliance with Chapter 71, Chapter 76, and Abington Public School policies. It's a family that I personally, as well as some other members of staff, have worked with very closely. It's a family that does expect to possibly return to the Abington High School before the student reaches the 12th grade, but they've ultimately just decided that at this moment in time, what works best for the family is to have the student participate in homeschooling instruction. As I said, the program is consistent with state regulations as well as our our local expectations for rigor.
Okay.
And so you have my recommendation to say that it's a valid program, but ultimately it's a school committee decision.
Okay. Based
Make
on,
that motion.
anybody second the motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All set, James. Thank you. For the superintendent of schools.
So in your packet, you have an amendment to the North River Collaborative Agreement. So what happened was Holbrook wanted to join North River Collaborative. They are joining North River Collaborative. As part of that process, North River Collaborative has to send their documents to DESE for a review. And so based on that review and state regulation and Massachusetts general laws, DESE has made these four suggested changes in the North River Collaborative Agreement. And the changes are included in the document that follows. In my opinion, this is a compliance exercise with the state more than anything else.
Okay.
There's nothing big here.
Anybody have any questions on it? We're looking for a motion to approve the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed's changes to the North River Collaborative Agreement.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
My next item is to request the establishment of Thursday, June 13th as the last day of school. If we have a weather event between now and then, I'll get back to you.
It'll all melt
I
before.
think I'll speak, so I could spend a lot of time in this one. Nobody wants me to. I'm just going to ask for your approval.
Peter, just beforehand, can I just add, just in case anybody sees it and sees the final day is June 13th, that's grades 1 through 11. Kindergarten would be June 7th, and the pre-K would be June 6th, based on the way this calendar was set up to begin with.
And then high school
I don't know when seniors are.
out.
I defer.
Oh, I should know this. May. What is the tech? Laura?
It's the Thursday.
Lots of Thursdays on it.
So I could always clarify to say, yeah, this is for 1 through 11.
I just want to add, because I've gotten questions on, does kindergarten end on June 13th? And it doesn't, so I just wanted to make that known more than anything. I figure the seniors know when their last day is for the most part, so even if their parents don't. So I'll be looking for a motion to set, the last day of school is June 13th, 2019. Like I said, the kindergarten's June 7th and pre-K is June 6th.
I'll make a motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance, Ms. Michelle.
Thank you. I have an update and a little background. We have been working with Wendy and members of the youth sports in Abington looking at our facility use fees, especially for gym usage during the week when there's a custodian on duty already at the school. So our objective for user fees for Abington youth groups is to not make money, but to cover costs. And over the last couple of years, with minimal maintenance being done at Abington High School in its last couple of years, and
The old building.
And minimal maintenance having to be done here that wasn't under warranty in the gyms, we are in a position that we feel like we can give some relief to the Abington youth sports groups in town for building use during the week when a custodian is not needed. So those groups would include, so what we are proposing is taking Abington youth organizations, nonprofit, civic and service groups, and community recreation groups, and moving them from a group 3 category to a group 2 category. And those groups would include, on the back page, Abington Youth Basketball, including Waves and Surge, Abington Youth Lacrosse, Abington Youth Football and Cheer, Abington Youth Soccer, and Abington Flag Football, as of right now. Okay. If there were other groups that only had Abington children in the group, then they could request from the superintendent's office to get that same group 2 status. Okay. The important pieces being that it's only for Abington children of families who pay for our buildings.
So this is, let me just dissect this. I think I was part of creating this, but
Yep.
just to further clarify for people. So now we're moving, say basketball, youth basketball is using the gym.
Yep.
It's already been cleaned, and it's after hours. We still have a custodial in the we still have custodial staff in the building. So they're not going to be now paying a fee.
Correct.
How will we monitor what happens if then there's an issue and the custodial staff has to now revisit the gym, clean the gym, and something in the building doesn't get it taken care of because of that?
That's a great question. It's something that we talked about, and that we have had that issue because we don't bring a custodian specifically on to address those. So let's say that there were a youth group used the gym. I get a call the next day, or the principals get a call that we had already cleaned the gym or the locker rooms. We went in, there were bottles, there was trash, and we'll contact that group. And if it becomes a chronic issue, then we may have to hire a custodian to be with that group in there. Another example that we may need to hire a custodian for that group is if it weren't for practice. For example, I don't know, if there was a lot of snow on Saturdays and they needed to reschedule games for a Tuesday night, there'd be a lot of people in there, a lot of foot traffic in and out of the gym, in and out of the bathrooms, in and out of the locker rooms, then we would have to make other arrangements, special arrangements for those specific times.
Okay. And so the groups are, we're just voting this in, but
Correct.
we will make that very apparent with the group that there may be times that actually there is a cost associated due to the fact that we still need to take care of the building.
Correct. For school.
At all times, that's for
Yep.
school, for the main purpose of why we're in this
Yep.
community.
Correct. And the other relief for that is also on the weekends, that instead of being $60 an hour for custodians, $40 an hour for custodian, because we do bring in a special custodian to open the buildings at those points. I would also recommend that this be effective July 1st. So there would be time to notify the groups, and that it's a consistent, fiscal year starts July 1st.
Okay.
And I want to thank Wendy for all her work around this as well.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you,
This has been a long-going process, a couple of years now, and I think our focus mainly was a lot on the turf. So it's good to, move it over to the gym. And I'd actually like to thank Bruce Augusta, because he did a lot of research on this and brought a lot of information to us. And we had our last meeting with him, and he would have been here tonight if they didn't have, the Augustas didn't have prior plans. But our Abington Youth Football and Cheer President Joanne Pease is here, and I know she's definitely very thankful. So reducing the cost is huge for the youth programs. It's such a relief because, basketball and football, there's a lot of costs associated with it. And, considering, we were considering next year having to increase the price. So this is definitely going to be, make the parents and families happy and keep everybody going and be able to provide, better equipment and everything for the kids. So
Thank you.
thank you for getting this going.
Yeah, I mean, thank you to everybody involved, obviously, from almost the entire town. I can imagine nobody's going to be upset about this one.
Right.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the updated building use fees as presented.
I would love to make that motion.
Second.
Second. You should second. You should second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. New business and establishing of next school committee meeting dates. So we will have two in May. The first one is Monday, May 20th, 2019, prior to town meeting. We'll meet here at 6. Regular May meeting on Tuesday, May 21st at 7 p.m. in the library. Some informational items in here I just want to hit on. I'm going to guess Peter Serino put this together. Peter Serino put together a nice page of all the accomplishments for the Abington High School winter season. Most people know some of the championships that were won, basketball and other individual awards down here. Invite everybody to take a look at it. In addition, as James mentioned earlier, Abington CPAC has speaker Sarah Ward on Monday, May 6th from 7 to 9 p.m. here in the auditorium. The event is free, no registrations required, all are welcome. The CPAC also asked me if I could just mention thanking the Beaverbrook PTO. Their monthly meeting is usually at 7 p.m. on the first Monday. They've moved it to 6 p.m. to accommodate parents who want to attend both. There's a flyer for the Celebrate the Arts Day from Mike Dorado, Abington Middle High School on May 8th. And the Spring Retirement Social for the AEA, May 9th. We have 6 names: Doreen Erner, Mary Lou Wales, Deborah Hitchens, Pocky Spears, Cheryl Colbert, and Joyce Harrington. And if I mispronounced anything, I'm sorry. Sorry, I gotta turn the page. The page wants to turn. I guess just some dates to remember. This coming Saturday, April 27th, if you're seeing this before April 27th, town elections are here at the high school in the gym from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Encourage everybody, obviously, to come out and vote. Monday, May 6th, the Abington CPAC event. Thursday, May 9th is an in-service early release day, as well as the AEA Retirement Social previously mentioned. Monday, May 20th and the 21st are the 2 school committee meetings that we discussed earlier, and that's all I had. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
And just add, tomorrow is our, we're having, due to the conflict with basketball and everything, we're actually, our April booster meeting is tomorrow night, 7
Great.
o'clock.
Great, thank you very much, Jeanette. Anybody else have anything? Jeanette, I'm gonna leave this one to you. I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion.
Any seconds?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I'll still be, I won't be having to, Wednesday week.
Yeah, I know, we're not gonna text you for building committee. Make the committee.